Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio. I'm here with my friend and co-author Nancy Saxton-Lopez, and this is a program that we do every Thursday, even on Halloween. Happy Halloween, from 6 to 6:30 Eastern Time. And it's an opportunity to have a dialogue that moves beyond the book that we wrote called The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups. This program allows us to share your stories, to comment on them, and so it's a whole new opportunity for sharing and communicating. And you can send us your story. We're going to be reading stories from audience members tonight. You can send us your stories, and you can reach me at kenddv@gmail.com, and you can reach Nancy at nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com. And if you write to us and share a story, we will write back to you. One or both of us will write back. You can tell us that it's okay to share your story, and you can tell us that it is not okay to share your story, or we can share parts of it, but not all of it. But we know that people gain a lot of solace from hearing what other people's experiences have been of loss and their process of healing. You can support our program in a number of ways, one of which is to subscribe to the Substack, which we launched this year, which is a series of posts that include the correspondence that we get from audience members, their photographs, our responses, often a dialogue that goes back and forth a few times. And so if that's something that you might find interesting, and also if you subscribe to this, you need to pay a subscriber fee. It's $5 a month or $50 a year, and that just helps with our support the program. You can also support us through a gift through Venmo or PayPal or a monthly subscription on Spotify. All of this that I'm sharing in the beginning is in the program description that is attached to either the live broadcast or one of the rebroadcasts. And so I'm moving through this kind of fast. This program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society. Dakin is a shelter, an animal shelter, a rescue program in Springfield, Mass. And it is a program that not only does rescue and adoption, it does a whole bunch of different programs that are helpful to all of us who are so invested in the bonds that we have with our animal companions. And one of their programs is a monthly pet loss support group on Zoom that I facilitate. It's on the second Tuesday of the month. It runs 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and you can join from anywhere in the world. And in fact, we have lots of different people from all over the world who join and get lots of interesting perspectives. There is no cost, and the RSVP link is attached to the program. Also, please consider, in the program description, please consider subscribing on YouTube, maybe leaving a thumbs up or a comment if you find this program helpful, because whenever there are, the subscriber number determines how high on the list of programs that are made available to somebody who's looking for something to help them with their pet loss, with their grief. And so it raises the visibility of the program when you subscribe and when you leave a comment. And thank you already for the thumbs up. Thanks, Kate. And the final thing we want you to know is that we have an affiliation with a business that's called Bereave. And Bereave is a business that makes these really nice granite memorial plaques, like the one you can see if you're watching on live or video. And it's very fine crafting, and it shows an image of your deceased pet. It shows whatever language you might like to be embossed on it. And it's the kind of thing that you would put at maybe a gravesite or a memorial garden, or maybe a place where you keep mementos inside. And if you buy a plaque through the link in our description, we will get a little bit of a donation or kickback from that purchase. So if you are inclined to buy one, it would be helpful to us if you buy it through the link. And Nancy is showing
There's Bailey.
Is showing the one that we've got as
Really
a
good,
sample.
heavy.
We wanted to make sure we had a
Heavy.
sample, so we were
Beautiful.
representing something that we knew was of high quality. And so, Nancy, you want to get us started?
Yes, we have two stories tonight. And of course, all of our stories are so heart-wrenching, right? because these are about our babies, our companions that have died. Um, and so we're going to talk first. I'm going to share Justin's story with Jitters and his cat. And Ken's going to share Tallulah, or Lou is the dog, with Kara. So I'm going to start because I think some of these, oh, look at, no, that lip Jitters.
It's a beautiful
so
cat.
Cute. What a cutie. Oh, sweet. Good morning. I stumbled upon your podcast, desperate to find some sort of support to help me with my loss. I lost my cat Jitters back in January of this year. It still feels like I just lost her yesterday. She died of kidney failure at the age of 17. Even though she's lived a full life, I beat myself up every day over things I thought I could have done better. I still break down and cry every time I come home from work and she isn't running to the door. I still look down at my feet, careful that I don't trip over her. I still open the cabinet every morning where her food and treats used to be when I first get up. We originally met when I cat sat for an old co-worker. She was only a few months old. It was Memorial Day weekend. She spent the first couple of days hiding in my walk-in closet. So I fed her and put the litter box in there. By Monday morning, she was curling up with me on the couch. When my coworker returned to pick her up, she hid under my bed. I decided she could stay with me, and the bonding began. I named her Jitters because when she was a kitten, every noise would make her jump. The older she got, the calmer she got. We had been through so much together. She was definitely the child I never had. Even though she was a cat, she had the loyalty, unconditional love, and dependency of a dog. I always gave her the choice to go outside. She chose to be an indoor cat. I started developing health problems almost a decade ago. I get unbearable stomach pains and uncontrollable nausea that keeps me in bed most weekends. She would always curl up with me, and we would spend the weekends just watching movies. All she knew how to do was love. She had so much love to offer. She brought the best out of me. No matter how bad of a mood I would be in, she could cheer me up immediately. I did my best to create a cozy and loving home for her. Now I realize that she was the cozy love and warmth that this home had. Holidays weren't a big thing in my home. She was the reason why I brought Christmas into my house. Over time, she would start to figure out what the lights and the stockings over the fireplace meant. Toys. Every year I would hang the stockings, she would meow and get excited. This Christmas is going to be unbearable. This past Tuesday was the first rain of the season. We had a tradition that on the first rain, we would light candles, open the sliding glass door, bake popcorn, and curl up and watch the original Frankenstein. Old movies are a big deal in my home. We did that for 17 years. I don't have many friends. Outside of work, I don't talk to anyone. She was my whole world. I miss everything about her, even the things that was at times annoying. Every time I would get up, she would get up with me. Every time I would leave for work, she would lie on my clothes trying to keep me from leaving. People would always come and go, but she was always there. The day I had to put her to sleep started with Martin Luther King weekend. I was sick with food poisoning. Monday, she was fine, just being herself. By Tuesday, she couldn't walk on her back legs, but she was trying. By Wednesday, she couldn't get out of bed. All I could do was pet her and keep her warm. I wrapped her in her favorite blue blanket. Early afternoon, she started to have a seizure. I called her vet and told them it was an emergency and I was coming down. She continued to have seizures with very small breaks. I knew what was going to happen. I had to explain to her that this was the last time she'll see home, that she won't be coming back with me, This was her only home. I've lived in the same place since 2007. This was her home. At the vet, they knew that we would have to put her to sleep. I was allowed plenty of time to say goodbye. I couldn't stop crying. As they were performing the procedure, she would just look into my eyes. I will never forget that look. Every day is cold, empty, and loveless. My health is worse. I don't smile anymore. I put on Oscar-worthy performance at work so no one feels uncomfortable around me. I've had some amazing support from work and relatives. It's good. However, even though they say they understand, I can't help but feel that my grief is supposed to have a time limit. In my mind and heart, I lost my child. Her picture has been on my work computer every day since she died, and I have no plans to remove it anytime soon. I'm tired, and I struggle to get out of bed every morning. Every day is a battle. When I get home, I collapse. I'm not looking for advice. I'm not looking to let go or forget. I'm just desperately trying to adapt. The holiday season is approaching, the first without her. I don't know how I'm going to perform at work like everything is fine when I'm dying inside. A big part of me died that day. I appreciate you allowing me to share. Of course, you can read this on the air. Maybe this will help me feel less alone. Thank you for your podcast and sharing other stories. It really does help. Whoa. This points to the amazing bond that we can have with our companion animals that supersedes anything else, right? I feel for Justin. By the way, I have spoken to Justin a few times since, and I have helped give him some referrals in the area in California that he lives, because he's just so incredibly sad. But what he has, his whole life is jitters, right?
Yeah, and they had one of those, you talk about a familiar or a soul animal companion, and that's very much what they had. And his care for her is so attentive, and you just get such a sense of the kind of loving bond that existed between them.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting sometimes the way animal companions and human beings find one another.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't his cat to begin with.
Right.
She belonged to a coworker. And she basically
stayed with Justin.
Decided that he was her person.
Right.
And it worked out so beautifully for 17 years. And her death was, Alice Walker wrote an essay once. I don't remember the exact title, but it was someone's name. It was like Miss So-and-so was having a good death. And it's a beautiful story about how all of the people who were close to this elder lady were around and taking care of her as she was dying. And it's very clear that Justin was aware that Jitters was dying and was giving her support and love and attention through the early stages of her dying process, and then kind of intuitively knew now it's time to ease her into the next realm. And that, she started having seizures. The seizures were coming faster and faster. He called the vet and said, "We need to come in." And he told her that this was the last time she'd be at her home. I mean, it's a very poignant and beautiful depiction of love through a whole relationship. And then when it's time for her to leave, he was with her all the way. She was looking into his eyes as they were administering the medication that would ease her out of this life. It's very beautiful. And I'm so glad you're working with him and helping him to get connected to somebody who can really be present for him and listen and provide him with the support that he so richly deserves.
Absolutely. What a
And
good man.
and what a good guy. And I feel bad about the imperative that he feels to sort of behave like everything is absolutely fine when he's at work. And depending on what you're working, what are the
That's
things?
right. Depends on where you're working, right? Or who you're with.
It must be the smart thing to do in his case, because we know that this can be a precarious situation for people, because unfortunately many others don't respect, don't care in the same way that we and people who love our animal companions the way we do. We accept that this kind of loss is a very, very big one, absolutely as big as any other loss may be in another person's life. But I feel bad that he has to put on an Oscar-worthy performance. That's really unfortunate. Because another thing that is important is, sometimes we're sad while we go to work.
Yeah, of course.
We're not in our absolute brightest spirits. We still do our work. We do what's required of us. But in the moments when, for example, we're not on the phone, or we're not in a meeting, or we're not dealing with coworkers, we might very well allow ourselves to share our grief, or at least to share our grief with ourselves. And I feel that he's in a predicament. So I wish him strength with that, because that's a hard thing.
It takes a
really
lot
hard
of
thing.
energy to do that, right? No wonder he collapses when he gets home, because he's got to put on that facade. No, I love that. I will never forget the look.
Yeah.
When at the end of the euthanasia, and it brings me back, Ellie. I was looking in her eyes as she died, and I think that is. It was wonderful that they were together, but it is such a hard thing.
Yeah.
It really is a difficult thing.
Yeah. So we're gonna move forward, and we thank Justin so much.
Thank you, Justin.
We're gonna move forward to Kara's story. And Kara writes, "Thank you for providing solace to grieving pet owners like myself through the Pet Loss Companion podcast." Let me put up a picture of Lou.
Oh gosh, so cute.
I've been listening to episodes for the last 3 days to find some measure of comfort. I'd like to share the story of my sweet Luli dog, partly to commemorate her and partly in hopes that someone who has lost their dog in a similarly tragic way will know that they are not alone in this immeasurable grief. In April of 2023, my son and I lost our beloved cat, Pilgrim. We had found her on the street when my son was not even a year old, so the two of them grew up together. He had never known life without his Pilgs. Her story could be an entirely other podcast, which is fine. We'd love to hear about Pilgrim as well. Right. At 16, we had to put her down due to kidney failure. It was incredibly sad. But we found an angel of a vet who came to our house to euthanize her. It was gentle and loving and gave us closure with our beautiful cat. Of course, we cried, and I still miss her. But it's incredible how we will still feel her presence in our lives, like she is still with us. Fast forward a couple of weeks. I've been wanting a dog for some time. I like to hike in the White Mountains of New Hampshire alone, and was looking for a 4-legged hiking companion. I hadn't owned a dog in 10 years, and it felt like when I had finished grieving for Pilgrim that maybe we would welcome a dog into our home. I browsed on Pet Finders, looking to adopt a rescue a month or 3 down the road, and then I found a photo of this adorable pup with floppy ears. Let me show another picture. Oh, wait, wrong one.
Oh, look at how he's crossed his legs. I love that. Oh, I love that. What a beauty.
She was a mostly black dog, and I'd read that black dogs are harder to place in homes. She was currently at a shelter in the south of the U.S., and the shelter arranged a Zoom call for me to virtually meet her. She stole my heart instantly. She would tilt her head to one side when I spoke to her. Did I mention the floppy ears? A week later, I picked her up at the designated stop, and we bonded instantly. Love at first sight. Tallulah, Lou, would follow me around the house everywhere. She wanted to be next to me at all times when she first arrived, and that's what I wanted too. So for a far too short year and a half, we had an incredibly happy life. She was just the right amount of naughty to be hilarious, but also incredibly sweet. We lived on a boarding school campus, and she was surrounded by students and other dogs. So she developed into a very social little creature. She was also an excellent hiking companion. I could hike with her off-leash because she had perfect recall, the result of carrying hot dogs on many, many hikes when she first came to me. Just the word hot dog, and she would quickly run to me. We spent hours hiking the campus trails. Lou always had the biggest stick she could carry in her mouth. She never bothered other hikers, never bothered other dogs that we'd encounter unless they expressed interest first. She was perfect. I have, of course, 1,000 stories I could tell about her warm brown eyes and funny little eyebrows, about how when she slept pressed against my legs, my insomnia would disappear, about how she'd greet me each day with her tail wagging so fiercely that her back end would dance off the floor, with a toy in her mouth to share with me. She was my perfect dog. I always said that we were meant for each other. When my son left me with an empty nest, we both knew it would be okay because I had Lou to be my companion. Please note that the following section is graphic. It's my attempt to exercise this scene from my head. It plays through 1,000 times a day. On October 9th, I arrived home on a perfect autumn day. She greeted me in the above manner with her piggy toy. I changed into jeans and a flannel shirt, and we headed out for a walk. The air was crisp, the leaves beautifully colored red and yellow and orange. Lou did her obligatory zoomies around me, and then we headed down the long dirt driveway where we live. Pure bliss for both of us. I was laughing out loud at her antics. Instead of heading to the river first, I decided that we should check the mailbox. We'd done this many times before. When we approached the small highway at the end of the drive, I always grab her collar as a precaution. There aren't too many cars, but the ones that drive by tend to go quite fast, 50 or 60 miles per hour. Just before we got to the place where I always took hold of her, she saw something across the road, a squirrel or a bird, who knows. I was watching her, so I didn't see it. She bolted. I only had time to scream her name before she was hit by a pickup that was barreling down the road. I watched her get struck, heard the sound of the impact. Our perfect afternoon turned into a nightmare in a split second. She died instantly. I ran to her and cradled her. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't breathing. She had defecated. There was blood coming out of her mouth, but strangely no other sign of injury. Her body convulsed twice, and I felt a little tremor run through her whole body, and then nothing else. I was knelt over her, holding her. Couldn't think, couldn't do anything but sob and say her name over and over. The man who hit her stopped to try and help. And I think I would have stayed there for hours had he not insisted on helping me carry her home so that I wouldn't be killed as well. My boyfriend came home immediately after he got the call, and while I waited for him, I lay on the ground outside our house, holding her, petting her, stroking her ears for probably an hour. Eventually, we buried her in the backyard, where she loved to spend her days. This grief is agony. I miss her. I see her everywhere. I sleep with her leash in my hand because it still smells of her. I put bully sticks and pepperonis and manchego cheese, her favorite treat, on her grave. Each morning, I cry most of the day. I can't sleep, can't eat. It feels like all joy is gone forever. This accident was all my fault. I go over the events leading up to it 1,000 times a day, thinking of everything that I could have done differently so that she would still be here with me. And it still feels so unreal that this current empty life is a nightmare that I will wake up from. It feels so unfair that she was only with me for a year and a half. But it's my fault that the time was so short. I didn't take care of her. I don't want to get through this grief because it will mean that time and distance are carrying her further from me. My heart literally aches. I feel this sorrow in my bones. I suppose I should write to you both after time has passed, and I'm on the other side of this process of grieving. I have no words of wisdom, but I know from the support groups that I found online that it helps to hear from others with the same tragic story, that we're not alone in this bottomless sadness. No. For now, I'm just going through the motions, putting one foot in front of the other, and receiving comfort from my boyfriend who shares my grief, and from my cat, Tilly, who misses her dog. You can share all or part of this story if you deem it appropriate. If you decide not to, that's okay as well. I just needed to write this all down to people who are empathetic to grieving dog moms. Thanks again for the support that you provide. Kara, rest in peace, sweet, sweet Tallulah, 11/2022 to 10/2024. I mean, how sad is that story?
I mean, Kara, the guilt, it's palpable. I understand, but it wasn't your fault. You know, when we were writing to Kara Wright, I said, lose the dog. You know, she saw something and she ran.
Yeah, it's wow. I mean, it's so hard because, I mean, we've said this so many times. You can do everything, but you can't.
Right.
You can't be on top of everything every single second.
No.
And as she said, it's just at the place where she would usually grab hold of her collar, and she bolts across the street. And
well,
I mean, there's just no explaining it. There's just no.
No. You know, Ken, that I went through this when I was 11.
Yep.
And I saw my little Skippy and fly through the air. I know that was one reason I do this work, right?
Yeah.
But it was horrible.
So
it
hard.
was devastating.
So hard.
And I'm sorry, Kara.
Yeah, we're so sorry. And you know, this reminds me actually of my cat Diana. I think I might have mentioned. I mean, she got killed on the road. I found her body.
Yeah.
I was screaming at the top of my lungs, carrying her back to the house. I called my husband. He came home from work. I think he thought I was going to stroke out. And I was holding her. I frantically dug a grave for her. And, you know, now there's coreopsis planted on it. And I walk by, it's under a plum tree. And every time I walk by it, I say hello to Diana, who would follow me everywhere as Tallulah followed Kara, who,
right.
I mean, it's so very, very hard. And we appreciate her sharing this because this
is a hard story.
And it's common. As she said, it's common. Yeah. And there's no accounting for fate. You know, there are things that happen that we just would never anticipate. We try to do all the things that will be protective, and we're not perfect. We can't manage every single second, and these things happen all the time, all the time. And one of the things we've heard, and I think you've heard this we heard this from a veterinarian, that it's very common for people to, in fact, run over their dogs.
Yeah.
It's happens all the time.
They don't mean to.
Of course not. But
it happens.
So
accidents happen.
And when we hear stories like this, we're particularly appreciative because we know that it takes courage.
Yeah.
It takes immense courage to share a story like this because there is this great tendency to blame oneself, and to share this with others is a way of helping other people know that this kind of thing happens,
right.
And it doesn't help to blame ourselves. You know, it brings solace to so many people to share this kind of story because it happens to so many of us.
Yeah, and we want to thank Kara for that. We
do, and there's a number of comments, so let's read through some of this. Hello from Australia from Nat. And then again from Nat. Ken and Nancy, your show has been supporting my healing journey this past month after losing my sweet 13-year-old Bengal cat, Azuma. Your show has brought me much peace. So thanks very much, Nat, for that. Let's see. Thank you for reading it and being so supportive today. It's really a hard day. That's from Justin.
Yeah.
And then
of course, Justin.
Halloween was really big in my home from Justin. Again, this is the first one in 17 years. Thank you for reading. It was really hard for me to write.
I'm sure
it was beautiful. It was really beautiful what you wrote,
mm-hmm.
Justin. So thank you for sharing it. How beautifully written. What a beautiful girl. How lucky you both were. This is from Nat.
Nat.
And somebody then wrote 420 growers is their name, and they wrote, "Oh, this is my story a year ago."
Yeah.
So again, thank you for saying that, because
Yes, it happens.
I still cry daily. Same thing happened to our beau on November 18th. So thank you for the comments, because
Yes.
they validate that this is not a unique circumstance, that this happens too frequently. And so we'll end there.
Our hearts
And,
go out to all of you.
yep, and thank you so much for being with us. Thanks again to Kara and Justin.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.
Take care.